sidewalk.
Yes, just a picture.
Just right in the.
Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, October 24th, and I will call the meeting of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board to order. First item on the agenda is changes or additions to the agenda. Do we have any? No? Very good. Just a reminder of our, did you just admit? Okay. Just a reminder, I do have time limits on each of our items on the agenda. That is to make sure we do not have to spend the night here. Also, that we won't, we plan on leaving even before 9:30, so we are keeping to this time schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will take a motion to approve the minutes from September 26, 2022.
So moved.
That was Davis. And Nancy, you second?
Second.
Okay. And if I could please, whenever someone, even here in the room, you need to say your name, because the person who takes our minutes is doing so through the recording, and it really helps. So thank you. Okay. Are there any changes, additions, clarifications that are necessary for the minutes?
I'm going to do the superintendent report before the special ed report, just
Okay.
in order.
Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. I'm going to start here in the room. Rebecca?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
I just, okay, now, Bill?
Aye.
Colleen?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
I abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay. Jamie?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And Nicole?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. Public participation or announcements?
I'll make it a quick one.
Okay, yeah.
We just got back, myself and some board members, from the VSA conference last Thursday and Friday, which was really a great opportunity to learn and work together. And we actually got to watch a video called Listen Up, which we'll figure out how to share with our community, which was a powerful, powerful video done with a documentary person that creates documentaries and students from around the state. And I don't think there was a dry eye in the workshop. It was that powerful. So you'll be hearing more about it, but just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you, because that was going to be my,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's quite all right. The filming, the screening of that was extremely powerful, and it was created by teens, for teens, and is the voice of teens. It's amazing, and I think we absolutely need to screen it for our community. Are there any other?
I just want to announce, this is Rebecca. I just want to announce again that this Wednesday at the Welcome Center at 6 o'clock, there's going to be a presentation on overdoses, drug overdoses in the community, and everyone's welcome. And an important topic, issue for the community.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to the administrative report. And Christine, did you say you're going?
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Okay.
first. Yeah. Okay. All right, here it comes. Share. Whoops, I meant to share it, didn't I? I meant to go to slideshow. Hold on. There we go. All right. I'm going to be pretty brief tonight because we have a packed agenda. But I did want to let you all know, and I'll share this out with you, that at the beginning of the year, we did a survey of all the staff at our opening in service, which was a direction alignment commitment survey. And if you're trying to move a system, you've got to have direction, alignment, and commitment. So we did a survey to see where we were at, and I've linked the results so you'll see them, but I just wanted you to know that direction was pretty clear. People know where we're headed, which is good. The strategic plan has really helped with that. And our commitment is there. Our teachers are committed. They care. Our administrative team, we're all very committed to the work. Alignment was the area that came up as needing more attention. So it's just aligning all the groups doing the work and making sure they're all moving towards that direction. So some of the things that we've put in place currently to help with alignment are differentiated professional development. There's a team that helps with that. We've got our middle level team meetings. They are led by middle level teachers. We've got our leadership teams, and you'll hear a little bit about what they're up to. SU-wide MTSS system in place now, which is exciting. We all had our own systems and they were a little bit different, and now we've under Brittany and Angie and curriculum, we really streamlined the MTSS process, and we're working on, as part of that system, really diving deep into the data, which is appropriate for those meetings. We have a faculty advisory council that I meet with. Katie and Angie join me to hear the voice of the faculty each month, talk about what's going on, what's working, what's not. Same with support staff. We're working on our Leader in Me implementation through our Lighthouse and Action teams, our curriculum coordination, which Angie's been working on. And we have administrator instructional leadership. So that is Angie and myself. We have in our calendar, we are in schools every week meeting with principals, working on problems of practice and aligning goals and helping them essentially be instructional leaders. So those are the things we're doing around alignment, which is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question,
Sure.
Christine? What is the Faculty Advisory Council?
So that's a group of faculty members that it was open to any faculty member to join a monthly meeting where we talk about issues. What's going well, what's not going well, what can we do about it? We brainstorm ideas. So we've got about 20, would you say?
Yeah.
20 teachers that have signed up to be part of that group that we're meeting.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about it, maybe at some point.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we do the same with the support staff, and the issues are a little bit different, but everybody gets a voice. So, yeah, it's important. So just those leadership teams, we have 3 of them. They are voluntary. Staff can join them if they choose to, if they're passionate about that work. We have a wellness team. It's the administrative lead on that team is Colleen, and she put this slide together, but I'm going to present it. They are meeting monthly. They met in September. They'll meet again in October. They planned during our October 7th early release for students. We had in-service. They did a survey for the staff to fill out on VHI, which is Vermont
Employee
Health Initiative. Thank you, Amy. And what they would like to see for wellness. We're allotting a little bit of time on our early release days for staff wellness. So it gave them a chance to weigh in on that. The monthly themes to celebrate October is healthy living and mindfulness and substance prevention, and November is going to be thankfulness. So those are just in building themes that we're working on. And then they meet this week on the 27th. And that team includes our nurses, teachers that are passionate about that work, and our admin leader, Colleen. We have Jennifer Aldrich. Her lead role is working with the SELs in the performing arts. She is doing some collaborative problem-solving work. She's training new staff members. She's got a parent session coming up in November. She helps lead the trauma championship. They were the trauma champions. They're the trauma leadership team now. And SEL and trauma practices go hand in hand. They are meeting twice, I think she meant twice a month, working to embed reflective practices, develop training for new staff, and create trainers in restorative approaches. That's their focus. And then Jennifer also meets with the performing arts team, and they are rebuilding. As you know, COVID had an impact on our performing arts, so they're in rebuilding years. And then the last team is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to let Katie take over on this one. She and Sergio lead this team together.
What are you, you got it. I'm surprised. So we just actually met today as a team. Sergio and I are meeting with Ethan twice a month in between our other meetings. And have sort of split to get some mileage on some of the tasks and get Ethan embedded in the district. The leadership team that met today, we're going to move forward on two action items. One is to put systems in place for the work that Ethan's going to be doing, any sort of data tracking, things along those lines, as well as a resource site. We're thinking website, and that's where we were today. The other is moving forward on how we bring restorative practices universally to the SU and what that looks like and how that is moving forward. Ethan will be, again, meeting with us at least twice a month, and he met with the four of us earlier today as well, including Christine and Angie. He is in the process of setting up monthly drop-ins, virtual drop-ins, kind of like open office hours. We're tapped him to start gathering some of those resources that he thinks will be useful, that then we can have a place to have those that are easily accessible. And that's a good partnership with the leadership team for staff of what do they think they need? What is out there? What are they, with wearing many hats as a teacher, as well as a professional, as well as a community member, as well as thinking about for students. He'll be attending community dinner and other events as he's available to in the evenings, and also supporting the DEI leadership team progress on our action items. So we're just getting to that point where everything's starting to dovetail. Today we had a pretty lengthy meeting. It was good. A lot of good conversation.
Right. And just lastly, just quick updates. We had our first Moving the Vision Forward session with Mike Nicholson. Our next session is on December 5th. Everyone is welcome. Our equity audit is moving. We are sending out the surveys, I want to say by the end of this week, and there'll be a 2-week window for people to fill them out. They're going to students 9-12 with parents can opt out of that, of course, that's our policy. Staff, community members, and administrative team. Those are the 4 groups that are going to be surveyed. And then we'll move to the focus group phase of the audit. And COVID updates, I think these changed since Friday when I wrote these in. We've had, since last month, 6 at HES, 2 at ABS, 1 at Weathersfield, and Windsor had 15 students and staff with COVID. So we are following the protocols. We're doing what we need to do. I think the biggest impact, especially at Windsor, is staff out and finding coverage. So Katie will be, we got all sorts of administrators subbing all over the place. And we did have flu clinics. The last one was today, I believe. Angie, didn't you get your shot today?
Yeah, at Heartland.
Heartland?
Yeah.
That was the last one. So, and one in Windsor yesterday. So, which was great. The nurses put those together for the community, and we had pretty good attendance at, haven't gotten the update from yesterday, but at the other one. So
It was both flu and the COVID.
Yeah.
it turned out you could get both.
Moderna,
Yep.
Pfizer, Moderna. Moderna.
Yeah,
Moderna.
that one, yeah.
And then the flu.
Excuse me.
You
All
were
right.
curriculum. Yeah, he went in.
So I am going to now, unless I'll take questions. I'm going to project Katie's special ed report next.
I just wanted to comment, Katie, the work that the team is doing. It's like, whoa. Just a lot. I mean, it's amazing. It's great, but it's like, how many hours are you putting in a day? 24?
Yes,
Yes.
many of us are putting in.
Yeah, you know, all the work that.
Including our
all of these
teachers.
I'll let her
teams
answer
are
that.
just-
Including
yeah,
our
are
teachers,
just-
yeah, everybody's working hard.
And it's good stuff. It's good work, and we bit off what we think we could chew. And I think that's part of what we think it's manageable to do this year. Or at least finish those two and then see what happens.
And we do enjoy working with each other, so it doesn't feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nice when you work with people that,
In other words, thank goodness.
yeah.
It does.
All right, so let me share this tab.
Keep it up.
Katie.
So I don't have as many pictures as Christine does because I just totally did, apparently I don't use my phone as much as I run around schools. So I apologize for that. And I didn't get Sabrina's picture up. So this is a full screenshot of all the students and staff from the ACE program and other kids who came with us to the high school to the Tunbridge Fair, which was an awesome day. We did a scavenger hunt. Students were very invested in finding out all the different kinds of whatever I asked them to go find. It was a high investment activity. Many had never been. And going with all of the other students around the Upper Valley, I think was pretty powerful. And it was a good community building event for our students and staff as they were getting to know each other at the beginning of the year. Plus, it didn't hurt that it was an amazing, beautiful day. So,
Ready?
go for it. So we had started thinking about, does everybody know who everyone is? So behind the scenes in special education, we have Betsy Howard, who is our lead logistics learner. Basically transportation and anything I need to do, she finds me. She's amazing at all of the pieces of, we all do our own purchase and requisitions from soup to nuts within the special education office and not with our other system just because of how we follow. Carrie Phillips, which I know those of you who've been on the board for at least a year know how we used to farm out Medicaid to an agency and we brought it in. Carrie is truly the master of Medicaid. We now have enough funds where her position can be fully funded by Medicaid and we can still put in for We Are Hope. That's how we use those Medicaid funds.
Oh, that's great.
Our numbers have been absolutely through the roof. Kathy Mack is another coordinator. She has an administrative role for all the students who are out of district, including all of our school choice students who are on 504s or IEPs, because we're still responsible for them, plus anybody we've placed. And she's overseeing doing the supervision and evaluation this year for Weathersfield. Sabrina, whose picture did send me earlier today that never made it into the slide, is our assistant director, and we're joking about we're now the directors of the no box thinking. It's going to be our new tagline. And she and I have been splitting the responsibilities for the 4 buildings, as well as Sabrina and Kathy are taking the lead on our mentoring program, which we have branched out from the current mentoring program and tapped into the state's resources to support teaching special education, new special education teachers a little bit differently for the nuances that are special ed, which is, it's gotten rave reviews. We're really pleased. And we had 2 staff, Karen Carl and Barb Martin, who went and were trained by the state this summer on their own time to a 3-day training to help us support that, which has been wonderful. What we lead, and you can go to the next one. Oh, that's right. I have to go to the next one because I can't see it that way. Christine jokes about this list probably can go on and on. What we wanted to highlight is student support services, all the special ed programs and staff, which is kind of obvious. We also oversee the 504 and ADA support for both students and staff. I work with Tina on anything having to do with staff so that she has the HR lens and I have sort of the disability or the access lens. The pre-K program, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is within our office as well. McKinney-Vento homeless liaison, that's one of my other hats. Our mental health services, as you know, we currently do not have any HRS staff right now in our buildings. not because we don't want them. They were not able to fill the positions because they're dealing with the same shortages we are. We're in lots of communication with them, though, on lots of other things. And then what ties into later support interventions and training for Rule 4500, which happens to be up on our docket tonight too, policies. Next is, Sabrina thought it'd be a really good idea to show people how many people are under student support services. And I'm not sure, every time I did the math last night, it was pretty late. Again, that 24 hours thing. If I added everything up, and I tried to do it by FTE and not individuals, but currently we have approximately 96 staff in student support services across the SU. And that does include some staff that actually work in other districts with our students, which is something we're also responsible for. And we currently have one unfilled special educator position and 10 support staff unfilled throughout the SU. We've had more turnover this fall due to varying reasons than we did experience last year. And it's the hardest hit is Windsor, and Heartland being the next one after that. So we're actively advertising again, website, School Spring, and any other place we can, working with Larry on that. So the next slide. So with all of those, that's an awful lot of people for one person with everybody spread out to supervise. So how we do it is together. The past 2 years, probably solidly, we've worked on shared leadership. I meet weekly with the principals, or Sabrina does. Sometimes we're daily, depends on what's going on. But we have weekly meetings. All staff now know our chain of support is to work with the building principals first. We can be brought in at any time, but it's not siloed. And that way, including supervision and evaluation, including making decisions about staffing and para support and all of that. And that has really helped. And I think for many folks, especially as we move to the MTSS systems, where things are streamlined and it has a structure, that it's not, okay, you're over here. And so I could have written more on that, but it really is shared. We do it together and we're on speed dial.
Do parents know where they can go if they have a child that is identified in any way? I mean, in terms of, I can go to this one and it'll take me, I mean, just, they know what the process is. It's not like they'd have to call the superintendent to find out, who do I contact, right? Is that process available on the website for them, or how is that made available to them?
Within our handbooks, as well as all the classroom teachers have been always our first line, and they are well versed in our MTS process and us being part of it. Whenever someone says, and it is the key words of, I would like my child evaluated for special education. That's the magic phrase that of triggers some legal pieces. We know what to do for that. And we have a very clear process now that it's called Child Find. Every 2 weeks, if there's a referral, we automatically have a standing meeting so we can meet, parents are invited, and so it's quick. So we have a fast turnaround. And we instituted that 3 years ago, I think it was, in response to making sure that we had a clear process and transparent one for families. And at that time, you can make all these different decisions, move to evaluation or get more support or whatever it might be. We are working on updating the website. Both pre-K and special ed 1 needs an overhaul. It's on our to-do list. And a part of that would be actually working with Brittany on what she's done on the MTSS site and Angie, so that it all dovetails and looks like it fits together. And we had sort of, because right now it looks pretty wordy.
And I guess my other question, and thank you for that was helpful, is if a student wanted to identify, I just thought about that and I wondered, do they know that they can? And if they can, how would they do that?
We just had someone ask that question. High school, it actually happens pretty often.
Oh,
And our typical response is, great, let's call your parents and let's do this together. Because it is cute with the little kids, if they see someone helping and they also want to go hang out with whoever it is, and actually it's a norm that kids are all working with all the different adults. But as they get older, they start to notice, like, hey, wait, I've noticed I've had trouble reading, or I've wanted, and they say something. And we do, that is not that uncommon to happen, and we pull a parent in and we make sure that that student's at the table meeting. And that's the other piece we're really trying to implement, is definitely our upper elementary, middle school, and high school students, getting them to come to the table. And we've talked a little bit about how they can help mentor others. So it's growing, and all part of the leader in me as well.
Thank you.
So the next slide, dinos. So we started, you've heard a lot about the ACE classrooms, which is the middle school, high school classrooms that we have here, but you probably have not heard about the Dinos classroom, which is Discovering Independence Through Organized Structures. They came up with the name. It is a classroom right now that is at Heartland. Heartland had space.
Really?
Not really,
Made
but we
space.
figured it out. We are finding an increase, this is part of our trends, of young children who have been identified as being on the spectrum coming in from some of our local clinics or other programs that have had a highly structured ABA program. And what we figured, and we just seem to have gotten a big bubble of kids across the SU. It just happened. And in talking with those families and talking with the those teams, because these are team decisions, of does it make sense to have the student in the classroom with a support staff person who has only been working with someone one-on-one or two-to-one in a very controlled environment? Or do we start with, the family stuff, this classroom? And so what we came up with as an option, and it's been fantastic, is a classroom that is geared towards running a small, supportive early childhood classroom, K-1, that is getting students to learn the routines of school, the norms, how to get in line, how to be at morning meeting, what are the learning techniques that they need, plus the communication. Many students have assistive technology devices, iPads or other devices as their voice, and some of them are really good at it. That moving towards inclusion and working with the classroom teachers so that they are ready to enter the classroom successfully, so that things like the sensory issues that are going on in the classroom, that we're mindful that we wanted to do things in a mindful way. So that's how this classroom came to be, led by a special ed teacher who's also training to be board certified behavior analyst, so that helps. It is Tyler Graves, almost based on Tyler's name, and a BCBA, Elizabeth Trzaskowski. She is embedded there with some wonderful support staff. So it is amazing to see from the beginning of the year right now to where they are now, and where they're going to be. They're already talking about how some students can be more included. So that's exciting. Someone rang in.
Elizabeth, your hand is raised.
Thank you. I wondered if you could explain more about naturalistic ABA.
So one of the things that with thinking about applied behavioral analysis, naturalistic being mirroring what an educational classroom would look like. So not a contrived spot that looks more like a table and chairs and we have kids doing just tabletop activities. Their classroom looks like a kindergarten classroom. It is more of a educationally focused. So within the field, they talk about naturalist opportunities to play and to be in the same environment where they're going to need to generalize those skills, including the playground and everywhere else, as close to that as possible without the volume of individuals. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do they have any breaks from applied behavior analysis?
Oh yeah, it's not a full full ABA program at any stretch of the imagination. Mostly part of that naturalistic piece is to learn through play and their natural environment in a way that is structured and organized. So yes, it is not you encourage folks, if you're walking through Heartland at any point, to come visit and just see all of our classrooms, that one included. But it is not tabletop activities by any stretch of the imagination. There was a lot of musical instruments being played earlier today when I went in the room, as they were exploring musical instruments just like you would in any other kindergarten class.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The ACE classroom, we changed it from last year from being one room to 3 pods of students, so that it's approximately 5 or 6 students per pod, and they rotate through 2 full-time classroom teachers, as well as 2 support staff who also work with our OTs and PT, OT and speech language pathologists on social skills instruction or community-based learning. And that has been a very different model this year, a little staff intensive in some ways, but definitely better approach to have the smaller groups. We are finally this year, thank you that we can do this. We have been trying for 2 years to have students more out in the community, and including building in this year, if all my phone calls go right, adaptive skiing and swimming program. And that also is going to be open to some other students in the district who need some alternatives for skiing, for example, or that we think need swimming and it's hard to find outside of school, those skills. I can say with a mom hat on as well as a special ed director hat on, the drowning being one of the leading deaths of children with significant disabilities who do not navigate the water, and how do we do that? So that is one of the life skills that we would be addressing for several students, not just in the ACE program. We also have an embedded mental health clinician, Julia Barakian, our school-to-home coordinator, has done a fantastic job being available for us whenever needed.
I just want, I do have a question about the Dino program. I was thinking about that, and you said that our numbers this year of students who are on the spectrum was really high, and I know I've heard that before. And so I'm wondering what's going to happen as these numbers, because they will increase. And so if they increase again next year, are we going to be able to accommodate them? Are we going to, how are we going to do that? I mean, we need to keep talking about that, but also, I mean, I think the Dino program is great, but I'm saying, so what if we end up with 4 additional students next year? Where do they go?
One of the nice things is we have a good pipeline for early childhood, so we know they're around.
Okay.
We also have a very good relationship with our local clinics that work with students on the spectrum, so that it is, we should, other than a student moving in, we shouldn't be hit with the bubble again without knowing we're hitting a bubble. So I think that, and we truly, and it does happen, hit a bubble. Our numbers within school age have seemed to stay fairly steady, even with students moving in or out, of students identified. Later in this, and I can mention it now, it's easier, three of our staff are now trained in identifying students on the spectrum with a very specific test called the ADOS. And we did that on purpose because many of our area, Dartmouth-Hitchcock, it's a year wait, other places with psychiatrists were not able to do it. So we've been able to in-house help identify and then build our capacity that way for older students. So that's been, so we are trying to be prepared. And if we do get 4 more, we'll figure it out because we always do.
Yeah.
We just need,
And we have to,
and we have to.
Yeah. so that helps.
I think space is probably, I'll put the plug in, that is the big, Christine can,
Oh, yeah.
space would be the hardest part because there are, for many students, at certain points, not always, but as we move and shift and respond to their needs, you need a location to do it and you need the staff. So we got the willingness. It's just figuring out those logistics.
Great. Elizabeth,
Thank you. I was wondering, I have 2 questions about the ACE classrooms. The first question is, who are in the ACE classrooms and how do they qualify for them? And the second question is, how does universal design for learning come into play? Thank you.
Okay. So students right now are identified through their IEP teams as needing, I'll go through our criteria, a small classroom, significantly modified curriculum, the direct instruction through special education, And sometimes it's also the small group aspect of having less distraction and the ability to have access to different programming throughout the day, so more flexibility within their schedule. Several of our students are also in other locations during the day. They're not with that's why it's the ACE classroom. It's not a program, because we have students that are also included in the tech center, others who are taking other classes at the middle school, the high school level. So it's very individual. But at this time, it is an IEP team decision, and we, as new students enter, they are on a trial basis to see if it's a good fit for them. And sometimes during that process, we've come up with some better suggestions for learning styles, and probably approaches that maybe if it isn't, what else that general education or their sending classrooms or schools could do for them. And UDL is embedded in the practices in terms of all of I would try to give it a good example of what they're learning about in social studies and their surrounding communities. They're also applying and practicing and further deepening that knowledge within their community-based learning, within the community-based class. And then again, they may bring that further into how they're learning about agriculture in science, so that there's multiple ways of learning in multiple subject areas. So thematically, they're connected, but it's grade level appropriate. That follows the standard, and so UDL as far as within the classrooms, plus within the direct classroom teaching, as well as within each one of those odd classrooms.
Thank you. I have one more question. I don't want to assume, but it makes me think that the Dino class, is that something that the hope is to get students to be able to adapt so that they don't need special ed help, or they need less special ed help, or they need to stick with MTSS after they leave that classroom? And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Go get finished. Sorry, I thought you had paused, but was there a second part of that, Elizabeth?
There is. I just want to know if that impression is accurate. And then I also wanted to know if the same thing is true with the ACE classroom.
With the Dino classroom, the goal is inclusion in a general classroom environment by learning the skills that they need with less, I don't want a different support than that. It would look very different than what it is within that classroom, as they're learning to tolerate their environment around them, and how they generalize that to the classroom, such as I think our early integration has been going out during Forest Fridays, for example, with the kindergartners, and how that looks with lots of support versus what it will look like for student A maybe 4 months from now with one adult support versus that whole group. So in terms of given the complexity of the students' needs, the goal is inclusion. And just we had to really meet those students where they were at coming in without trying to make them meet what a larger classroom would be. So we almost called it the bridge program to think about. That was one of the ways we were thinking of it.
No, I totally get it. And it's going back to that whole idea of bunching up services at the lower grades with the idea that the students grow better.
It's kind of like the idea just to connect it to transitional K.
Yeah, right.
That would be the early childhood to transitional K.
Right.
Keep going. Okay, sorry, I didn't see the time limits for it. And I was asked to do my comprehensive, so I can cut down.
No, it's quite all right. It's good.
Case manager or service provider, I don't know if we did this at the end of last year. We split out the special ed position to, hey, I want to do paperwork because I love paperwork, and I want to be a teacher because I like the teaching part. And strangely enough, we had 3 people volunteer to be case managers who really are good teachers, but they were feeling like they wanted to do paperwork. So, and this, to your question, Rebecca, I'm going to anticipate it, is that we've informed parents, we've informed teachers that now there are 2 special ed professionals on the team. One who's the case manager who will do the paperwork. They will organize the meetings, they will make sure you get your stuff. And your service provider, who's the special educator or OT, PT, SLP, who's actually going to teach your child in the school. And so we created a great document. It's so far, knock on wood, we have had parents have a good response from it. Special educators have to do far less paperwork. They still have to do Medicaid. And the case managers, the organizational skills are amazing of those folks that are doing it. They have caseloads about 80 kids each, just to do paperwork, not to actually teach them. When I say that, people freak out. So that this is a model that we ended up, I think, adding, probably a half a case manager if I went back and did all the math of how we ended up there. But it is definitely improving our ability to see students as well as being part of that MTSS system. So the next is briefly, which does tie in a little bit later, safety care. We were a crisis prevention and intervention and physical intervention school district, which almost most of the state of Vermont is. We decided this summer, it was a leap of faith and not quite a cliff, but it was time sensitive, to do this approach that is considered much more consent-based. It is also very ABA-based and a lot more preventative strategies on looking at what's going on with students so that when we do need to use our de-escalation techniques, we know what we're doing. We seem to have the feedback, and it's quoted there, and you can certainly read it, was that folks felt they had many more options now before going hands-on. And as you can see here, Julia Barakian's in the middle, who is our new mental health clinician. She and Jennifer Aldrich is holding her legs, and Colleen is there, and then Kelsey, and I'm not sure who's standing behind who that is. I can't tell from the picture.
It's Andrew McPhillips.
Thank you, Jennifer, who is the ABS school counselor. Am I remembering right?
You're correct.
All right, and demonstrating a chair pose. So we had 6 staff members from across the SU trained to be trainers so that we now can have a much better reach for people to problem solve around kids. And we have very few any physical intervention, but really it's about the de-escalation techniques. So we'll have about 10 more staff to train this year, and then we'll be done, and then we'll restart next year. So that was a big change for us this year. So no more CPI. Pre-K slide did not get the pictures I wanted, but we've talked about pre-K a lot, so we can skip that one, I think, if we're good. By the numbers, so the Heartland members that are here, my numbers the other night were slightly off. Betsy and I went and double checked because something wasn't feeling incredibly right. We were just looking for our trends of where we are for students in terms of child count. In 2018, we had 214 students total. Right now, our total students identified in special ed are 283. So we have gone up just about 70 students, not at the 100 we thought we were before. There was just a mix up with numbers.
I just have a very quick question, and that is, what is ESCE?
Early childhood special
Okay, thank you.
education. The way the state breaks them out is to K-12 and early childhood. So I thought, as we looked at staffing, our paraprofessional staffing has stayed almost constant since I've been here. In 2019, our teaching staff has incrementally gone up, but what also has gone down, which comes to the trends, which is the next slide. Thanks. And then I think I'm done. We've seen an increase in pre-K students being identified prior. We're probably going to end up with 30 at the end of the year. We're already at 30 kids, either in process or current. We mentioned students who've been identified as autistic. The other is, you've heard a lot from me over the past few years of decrease in SU place students. 21 when I first started, 12 last year, and we're currently at 11. And we've had a couple students transition back, including, and this is part of that big picture, are the ACE classrooms allows students who would normally have had to go elsewhere stay, including the ODP program, which is Occupational Development Program in Springfield, which is a fantastic program, as well as the Regional Resource Center up in Hartford, that they stay here instead of going to either of those programs, as well as students returning from some of the more mental health placements where they need the small classroom and have some significant learning challenges as well. So that has sort of, as we do budget, when we get into that later, accounted for our increase in teaching staff. But it's definitely offset by having kids here.
Right.
That's phenomenal. I do want to say that's phenomenal. From 21 being placed out to 11. Those are big numbers.
We did, it's not all what we've done, I will put in, we've had a lot of older students as they're getting out, they're aging out, they're graduating. We're just not putting anybody else. We're putting very few students, that we still are placing students as needed because that's appropriate as they are identified and it's needed. But I think our rate has slowed significantly down, as evidenced by on the other end, they're graduating.
But you're also putting in programs to
Yes.
support those that you are, so yeah.
We're getting it on both ends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors.
That's great.
And the last slide was just for when you click on it,
Yeah.
at some point, there's a 1 page or 1.5 page Google Doc on Act 173 that I thought was very informative. That as an overview that I put in there. But that's it. How much did I go over, Amy?
15.
Let me see.
15-ish.
I thought it was
More.
That was good. Good.
30, but it's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much. It was very informative, and that's a good thing. Next on our agenda is correspondence, and in the last few days, we did receive one letter from Mr. Daniel Wirtz, and it will become part of the record for this meeting. Did anyone else receive? It was directed to the SU?
No.
Great, thank you. We move on to items for discussion. The hiring and employment policy.
That's Elizabeth.
And let me see, Elizabeth,
I'm sorry, I completely forgot about this for this month. I think it's because I missed the last meeting. I apologize. I got nothing.
You can take 50% of the blame, Elizabeth, and I'll take the other 50. I did as well.
Sorry.
okay, that's fine.
We're just making up more time for you.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be next agenda, so it's all fine. Thank you. No small matter update,
Oh, good.
Elizabeth?
No, I also here we can make up some time because I don't have an update. I'm still waiting to hear from the 2 grants that I applied for to pay for it. That's
Okay,
it.
Great. Yeah. Well, we look forward to hearing and cross fingers for the grants. Next, we have recommendation on social media and communication plan.
That's me.
And Christine.
Yep, I don't think I need to present, but I have the information to share with you. So we did, Larry did a staff survey, and what we found out, and we met with the administrative team to talk about social media and essentially blocking those 4 sites on student devices, Chromebooks. And 93% of the staff agree with the decision to block social media on Chromebooks. 93% of the staff surveyed felt there was no educational value to social media, and those that did had a workaround for teaching about it. They could use their own devices to do that. The administrative team met, and we are also in agreement. Our recommendation is that we do block social media for kids in K pre-K-12, but offer an opt-in for our 11th and 12th graders so they can, so allow them to access things that we're posting on social media like fundraisers and sports and those types of things. And if the board, I know we talked about, how that is one of our communication tools. So we'll need to come up with a plan, but we wanted to have the board weigh in before we put efforts in that realm. Yes.
Most of our communication through social media is to parents who are
Most of
on. So it's not like we would be excluding.
No, but making an effort to make sure we're posting things on the website as well.
Right, yeah,
Those types of
exactly.
things, yeah.
I think Nikki had her hand
Nikki.
up.
Hey, thanks. I actually, the survey response makes me feel really good about the direction about this. I was questioning, and I do feel really strongly that if we are not allowing the kids on social media, then we need to post events somewhere else. Because I know, me personally, there are a lot of parents that are trying to stay away from social media. And it's really frustrating that that's the only way that we can get a lot of information.
Thank you.
Reading that, thank you.
I think, Nikki, you kind of anticipated what my comment was too, which is going off of that. I think that making sure that whatever our central hub of communication is something that the only thing you need to access it is access to a browser. There's not, when you use social media as your primary mode of communication, you kind of firewall out, in a lot of cases, anybody who's not a participant in that particular social media.
Right.
Which I think in years past, Facebook was much more widely sort of accepted as something of a public commons. I feel like in the last few years, a lot of people have been peeling off of that. So I think that we need to be responsive to that. And just think about access when we have a central hub of information. That isn't to say we shouldn't use Facebook and shouldn't use these other platforms, because for a lot of people, they are still a primary mode.
Right.
But we just need to make sure that that's not our first stop.
Yeah.
So everything should be on our website
And then it
and
can,
have a designated age if that isn't too complicated.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone who is, granted, this all has to be put in place, and Hudson, just a moment, but they can look to the website for any announcements. Hudson.
My only recommendation is that have the opt-in be for 9 to 12, because as a 10th grader, it is easy, like if I'm in a class meeting presenting and if I want to go to a link for my fundraiser, that I can go right to it, because even on my non-school issued MacBook, I have to go to my other Google account because it is still blocked. It would still be blocked. That is the case for some apps that I do use. And I think it also will give kids that sense of responsibility. But
Is that something, Larry, that could be done, for instance, not just openly give that option, but if Hudson or someone else, another student is.
If the board wants to do the opt-in, 9/12 instead of.
No, I'm saying if you can, for 9 through 10, if they come to you, you're working on a particular project or fundraiser, they can come to you and say, can we access?
No.
No,
their parents would
No,
have
their
to give them
parents have
permission.
to have
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
right now, the recommendation is to opt in at 11/12. And if they wanted to extend it to 9/12, you could do that, but it's up to you. Okay? Recommendations 11/12.
I'd be amenable to 9 through 12. I mean, I think I agree with you. That does extend some responsibility to students who are in that high school area. And also, again, it is with parent permission. So there is that conversation happening and the understanding that that's being extended. So I think that's completely reasonable.
We discussed it at length, and we could have probably gone either way as an administrative team. So,
So that's an item for action.
Okay.
Peter.
Yep.
So wonderful,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I will do is I will put something in my newsletter or send out a special s'more edition that lets parents know that this will happen. Again, it does not mean students are not going to access these sites on their phones, because they likely will. But we're trying to be very consistent about our cell phones in school as well. So, all right,
Thank you.
sure.
Next up is superintendent search. At our last meeting, we voted to approve engaging Vermont School Board Association. And they sent me a contract, which it had the date that the search would officially end, that they had a typo in the date. So I sent it back, and they will fix it and get it back to me, but they are ready. And as soon as I get that, I will share it with everyone. Okay, so that was very quick. Policy review and readings. So we have about 20 minutes. The first is the restraint and seclusion policy, and that is the second reading, and it has procedures with it.
Those are in the portal, the procedures that are in draft form.
And Bill?
So upon reading the, I'm assuming that the WSESU was the edited version, because I read that. A couple things I'm concerned about, or believe there needs to be a definition in here, is in the first sentence, substantial.
Bill, are you on the procedures or the policy?
Oh, this is the procedure. Okay, so that's the difference.
Katie and I worked on procedures to match to follow the policy, and we Katie vetted them with our DEI coordinator about a week ago, I think, right?
Right, and as Christine and I did the procedures to mirror the policy until it got to the point where we needed to be more specific. We tried to stay as closely aligned to the policy, given the complexity of this particular policy and procedures, and to be aligned.
Draft use. Okay, I'll take a look at that. But I still have a concern about defining what substantial means. I'm assuming that refers to substantial risk of bodily harm.
First line.
Imminent is pretty clear, but what do you mean by substantial risk of bodily harm? I think that should be laid out in the procedure. And that's all I have for now.
Yeah, so those definitions of substantial risk are in the state board rule 4500.3. Should we have that and make it?
We link it in
I don't know if we linked it. We were definitely using it to guide us. Did we link it?
We have it, we didn't physically link it, but substantial is in there under 2.13.
Could,
We can link it.
2.13, we could link.
yeah, that would be
Yeah.
helpful,
Okay.
with the definitions. So it's not a 30-page document, but you can go to the ruling. That would be really good. Thank you.
Because even like seclusion's defined with restraint, and they're modifying what types of, what means restraint, what means moving restraint, and other things there, so.
I put it on the to-do list. Yeah.
And I would have
Great.
a similar comment about guiding escort. I assume that that's better defined as well.
It is in the training. They haven't updated the language yet. And that's the difference between an escort and a restraint It has to do with the willingness of the individual. And that's been updated in the training, again, with what we just did. But I don't think the language is caught up to that yet. And they were clear about that. And just so you know, part of our safety care training, everybody newly trained did the most updated state training. We got the slides and we reviewed it. So everyone is completely up to date.
Okay, so, I think this will go on to a third reading, so we can have the links to those.
Amy,
Yes, Elizabeth,
just-
sorry.
that's okay. Can I just make a couple of comments?
Sure.
This is a concern statewide, and current law states that and so first, I can't find my legislator pin, but as your area legislator, I'm positive that there's going to be some changes made to the law this year. But one of them, which I think this is a really good policy, but the thing that is left out of the law and out of the policy is that the law states that there only needs to be one person trained in each building, and yes, I see your consternation, Katie. The law states that there only needs to be one person in each building trained. And I think statewide, that's really a big problem, because during COVID, that person may have been out a lot. The state allows for seclusion and restraint by anybody in the absence of the person who's trained.
Mm-hmm.
And so my request would be that there would be more people trained.
We have
And
multiple.
so that's,
On that, all of the training programs, CPI, safety care, all of them, it's 2 or more individuals. So you might be, a team approach is, and we've done, 3 has been the norm for CPI. So the law may say that we need the minimum of 1. In practice, the training that we all receive, that's why we have teams of approximately at least 6 people in each building at this point, including Albert Bridge, which has the smallest number of students, but actually, I think there's, Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, you're still here, on about 5 to 6 people trained. So, and I know and the absence of that anybody can, which is another whole issue. But, so in practice, I don't think I've ever been in any place where there's only been one person trained. But we have, you're right, with COVID, you could be the only person and you have to immediately intervene. But best safe practices, definitely, we are not in that camp of just being minimal.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate that practice. I'd just like to see it in the policy. That's it.
So-
And it may, yeah.
a policy to say that there will be more than one? Is that what you mean?
I would think that there should be a percentage of the staff. I don't know. I'm not an educator, so I don't know, or an administrator, so I don't know what would be appropriate. But
Well, I am a teacher, and I did run an alternative program in any given building. You need to have at least 3. A percentage would be better, but
You know, and-
you got to have more than 1. I mean, that's just crazy, because a lot of the transport holds and restraint holds all require more than 1. So saying, oh, you only need 1, when actually you need multiple trained individuals.
well, I think you and I have talked about this, Bill, but I'm positive that that's going to get changed this upcoming session.
In the policy, the last page, I don't know if this is what we're talking about, but it says under implementation, the superintendent shall ensure that appropriate staff, I don't know if that means number of staff, are provided training by programs recommended by the AOE.
So there's an approved program list from the AOE that they just updated this summer. And I think it only has like 4 programs on it at this point that are approved.
Safety care.
Safety care, yes, I did, we definitely made sure that was a part of the last hurdle, was to make sure that they were re-upped. So would it be, about best practices to have a certain percentage? One of the things that I'm concerned about, if we put a quantifiable number and we have a number of people sick that day, plus could be some people who needed, the students who did, then we are not following the policy. I don't disagree at all that we definitely that we need more than one, but is there a way to word that so it doesn't?
So it's trained.
So it's
The number
trained,
of trained.
number of the
Not
trained people
necessarily-
that they're present every day.
Yeah,
And I would say that within our buildings and who we have, the trained, a percentage sounds like it's a decent way of going for math-wise of figuring that out. Because Windsor obviously has more than Everbridge trained, I think.
What do you think that percentage should be, like realistically?
Let me go look at my TPI list for a second to see kind of where we felt comfortable as an ad team for each building, and then I can do the math.
It's definitely more
Bill,
than
do you have a
3.
question or another comment?
I have both. Actually, more of a comment. I don't mind looking at an MOU for support staff to encourage with some horizontal movement, to encourage support staff, particularly paraprofessionals, to actively be engaged in the training and the understanding that what it takes and that they will be required to participate. One thing about support staff is that if they are pulled from a situation to participate in a restraint or seclusion, it is much less likely that other classrooms will be disruptive. A lot of times what would happen in my program is different teachers were trained. So they would have to come into a restraint situation, and being the primary teacher, their classroom is disrupted as well as my classroom. So, looking at support staff and ponying up some money, either, of course, we would have to look at that, not for this year, but future years, included, because they would have to be trained as well. But I think that's a possibility. The other comment I have is in the procedure, which I think is great. It says that the evaluation must include a routine physical - medical assessment. I'm not sure what's the difference there. Conducted by someone not involved in the restraint or seclusion with documentation. I'm concerned is it doesn't state that a physical medical assessment by someone who is qualified to do a physical medical assessment. I mean, you just can't.
He's in the, are you in the procedures?
That's
Bill?
straight
I'm in the
from
procedure.
Rule 4500
Mhm.
language of what's required.
Right. But required isn't, as Elizabeth pointed out, required isn't always covering what's best practice. In our procedure, I believe it's important to look at best practices. I think somebody who is going to do a medical assessment needs to be qualified to do the medical assessment.
I think the way that's written, in case that person's not available, then we would not be able to follow that part of the procedure. So
In a typical situation, the student is sent to the nurse for
Okay.
medical assessment. If the nurse is not there, then typically the student is sent to, if there's a first responder in the building, that would be the second choice. If there's not, they're sent to the office.
or the school counselor.
The
I just
school
think
counselor.
that should be laid out, so you just don't grab the nearest individual and say, okay, do a medical assessment.
Good
Yeah,
point.
No,
That's- I don't think we do that, but I hear
Yeah,
you, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, procedures need to be because it's not a, it's not it's a procedure. They need to be
It's a
fairly
procedure.
clear.
Yep. So I'll put a comment in there for Katie and I to look down.
And just to circle back to your support staff, we have made funds available for any support staff that we've identified or has shown interest, and we determine that it's appropriate for their role to participate in the training and making that available to them, whether they're being paid extra for it or not, because depending on where it fell, if it was outside of the contracted hours or on one of the professional days, that they wouldn't have been there. So we have made that extensively available to many support staff. We are not making, because for many of our support staff, this would not be something that they would participate in, nor may have the student level skills yet to participate in using physical intervention because they haven't been doing the job long enough. We don't have a sense of what their skill level is working with students, that there are many that are not being offered the opportunity. It's very different than doing collaborative problem solving, which is the verbal interventions and de-escalation types of, well, not de-escalation, but other types of techniques than it is for someone to do any physical hands-on. With that said, we do have some staff that have shown interest in doing just the de-escalation pieces, which wouldn't cause for certification, but we're going to make that available on our next round for staff who would like to participate in that, excuse me, as our numbers allow. That's a plus we're able to do. I'm still trying to figure out the percentages. Sorry.
Elizabeth,
Thank you, Amy. Is there any room in here for occasional analysis of the data that's collected?
In the policy or the procedures or
In the procedures? For example, if a particular teacher has a lot of, has a higher incidence of seclusion, or if a student has a higher incidence over the course of time, it could, I mean, obviously, it's not realistic to think that if a student has a lot of different, if a student has problems that warrant seclusion or restraint, that the teacher and or staff wouldn't be looking at what to do about it. But it might be useful to have, for example, an analysis, a periodic analysis.
I guess the follow-up question to that would be, what data system does the district use for Swiss, for gathering behavior incidences?
we have, and Katie can speak to, the Rule 4500s come in and she keeps the data on that. Some of it we have to report to the
No,
state.
not restraints. What software do
Yeah.
you use? What
We
data
use
system do you use?
we use the MBA, MBA through Power School. Bill, we just
Okay.
switched to it this year.
And in terms of, to hit on your, Elizabeth, on your question, is that I'm the one who receives all the 4,500 reports. And there's a process for if any staff member's been involved in 3 or more, it's reported directly it all goes to me, and I keep track of that, as well as anything too frequent on a student. And those students are typically students that we would already have on behavior plans and flag, and we would revisit that. I'd like to put a plug in. We have, I think, 1 from the district or 2 so far this entire year. It is not a common occurrence. So to extrapolate much data out of it, we're fortunate we don't have to extrapolate much data out of it because we just don't have the incidences. But if we did, and that has happened, I also receive all the ones from our out-of-district placements, and those tend to be the ones where I have to be more involved versus anything in-house. So just to
I thought I was reading somewhere in here that it said that the superintendent is supposed to inform the board
Right.
annually
Yeah, that's.
of whatever, any that have occurred. And I've never heard those.
Never had that report before.
Huh? I've never heard it at our board meetings before. But that annually, and I don't know when that would occur, but that the superintendent must inform
I
us.
think I did it once.
I think, yeah.
We did do it? Okay.
It might have been a couple of years ago,
Okay.
that I've been, as the designee for the superintendent to take care of all of these things that go,
I'll put it on our list.
put it on our list, but yes, we certainly can do that.
It would make sense. to
Yeah,
have
I've done it
that.
at least once.
Implementation, section 4 says the superintendent shall report annually to the board on the implementation of the administrative procedures required by this policy and shall include any recommendations for changes, if any, related to school district / supervisory union policies or procedures. So an annual report. And I would imagine that COVID
Do that.
kind of messed up.
Yep.
Multiple reporting.
I'll put it on the list too. Don't forget.
Okay, so that will.
Nikki, sorry, Amy, Nikki has her hand up.
Hi, Amy. I just had one more comment. And I guess that this is something maybe I'd like just a sentence in the procedures, if you all agree. A single restraint can cause trauma to a child. And so now we have a child that's been traumatized in school, and we have like reviews and debriefings in the procedures, but we don't have like follow-up on this child that has now been traumatized. And so a single restraint can lead to the need for additional restraints if we haven't addressed the trauma that's caused by the initial restraint. And so I guess I'd like to, maybe just a sentence that acknowledges that having been restrained, this child has likely experienced trauma and should be watched for trauma-related behaviors. I feel like the teacher should be flagged. Like the child should have a flag with them that they may now have experienced trauma in school and may now need additional thought processes as their behaviors exhibit themselves in the classroom.
So that was mentioned at our last meeting, and that was part of why we met with Ethan to go over these procedures. And after talking about that at length, Nikki, talking about trauma and how that sort of fit into this, that's where we came up with the statement that there's an opportunity for the parent. This is on number 3, the debriefing. Opportunity for the parent and student to engage in a restorative process with staff. And so it kept the intent so that the parent and student and staff were involved in a restorative process about the restraint without using the term trauma, in part because that felt as though it implied that almost harm, and that is not necessarily a universal belief around the use of restraint by even a student or parent, and dependent, because it's all situational. So leaving that, and if that's comfortable, that's where we landed on trying to meet that need, as well as really emphasizing what our process should be, extending it beyond what the state said we should be doing.
Yeah, no, and I liked that part. I just, and I guess I'll talk from experience. As a parent who's experienced this, it's traumatic to get those letters. And it can cause shutdowns of the parents. And the parents are not the best advocates for the child at that point. And that's what concerns me, because in this procedure, if it were to happen all over again to us, I probably still would not be capable of engaging with adults at that point. So I feel like there needs to be additional follow-up beyond that, because the parents are just as traumatized as the child.
Yeah, I think also that ties into the just having a review based upon a physical review, because most of what happens in most of the damage when it does occur, I've restrained students hundreds of times, and most of the time it's to their benefit because it's that physical release that they do. But sometimes it does cause trauma, and so it shouldn't just be a physical check-in; it should be an emotional check-in.
Maybe it's just that we will follow up in the following week or something that takes it out of the moment, because I mean, yes, I think within 4 days it's appropriate to provide the parents the ability to speak. But having been a parent in that position, I was not able to speak after 4 days. And probably like 2 to 3 weeks later is when my anger and need to speak really happened. And at that point, there's no opportunity.
One of the other things we added in on number 1, the debriefing, which more goes to what you just mentioned, Bill. Debriefing with the student and staff within school 2 days, reviewing the behavior precipitating the restraint, the student's emotional needs, showing sensitivity to the child's developmental age, and another trusted adult identified by the student can be invited if requested. Those were pieces we attempted as we were, because for some students they're like, yeah, whatever, I'm good, and other students not, and so trying to make sure that we also had the ability to connect with the adults. Maybe that's a spot, do we circle back what you just said, Nikki, and to that at a later time? And I'm sort of thinking about how to word that in our procedures, but there were certain nuances that we added in to be more responsive, more than we have had in the past, to the processing piece and holding folks to that.
And I really like what you guys wrote. This is extra, I guess, maybe knowledge of having been someone in this position. I just,
Can you add,
circle back?
provide parents with an opportunity to meet with the team within 4 days? I mean, does it have to be?
Maybe it could just be have an
Longer?
administrator talk to the parents
That's long.
the following month, or like within a couple weeks.
Yeah, so, I mean, they have the opportunity to meet. They've been told within 4 days that they have an opportunity to meet.
yeah.
It doesn't mean they need to meet within those 4 days.
We have to document what we ask, and
Yeah,
that it's been offered and what their response is. And we certainly meet at their convenience, but we
Yeah.
have to have that documentation that we have asked
Within
and
4
offered.
days, yeah.
So that's the minimum, and maybe we say this is the minimum required. Staff can certainly should follow up and extend beyond this, something.
Yeah, that would be nice, that this is the minimum. An additional follow-up would, I think that wording sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki, for that,
Mhm.
because I agree with you. For anyone to put their hands on a child, other than a parent, is not a good thing. If I can just use some real simple words, and that can really send some kids to a place of a lot of discomfort. So I do appreciate you raising that point.
It really can be disturbing to the parents as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just know from my state of mind that this wouldn't help me at all. 4 days, it was burned in the fireplace and we were moving on, but a couple weeks later, there was processing to be had. So,
but that's what I meant was you're notified within 4 days, but you don't have to meet within those 4 days. You can say, I can't meet with you right now, but I can meet, let me get back to you when I feel like I can.
Mhm.
And that is part of the language that is communicated to parents.
Yeah, we can clean it up a little bit. Bring it back.
yeah,
But if you hadn't heard of that opportunity within 4 days, like if you hadn't received anything within 4 days, I think you might have been even more angry.
Oh, definitely. You need something within 4 days, but you need
Yeah.
to follow up with the parents, or else the
Yeah, but
trauma
you
just
don't-
gets worse.
You don't need to meet within those 4 days.
No, you need to follow up with the parents when they're in an emotional spot where they can process too. And 4 days is not enough. They need more.
Right. So that will be,
That'll be the third reading, right? Next month?
yes.
Okay.
And we have 2 policies that they are the first reading, and that is the non-discriminatory mascots and school branding policy, which is a new required policy. And the other is selection of library materials. And if there aren't any questions, we can move those to a second reading. And we can move on to budget with Larry.
So here we are again to present the next fiscal year's budget. I'm going to get right into it. The budget committee consists of members from each school district in RSU. Rebecca representing Mount Scottney, Colleen representing Heartland, Jamie representing Weathersfield, and of course Christine as our interim superintendent. This is a timeline of what we've been working on. We started with budget prep in August, getting a lot of the wage and benefit stuff done. And then in September, meeting with all the department heads and drafting a budget. The first SU budget committee meeting was September 16th. And September 26th, about a month from today, the budget committee had the full draft in their possession. And then about a week later, a week and a half later, it was sent out to all the SU board members and on the website. And our last committee work session was last Friday, where there were presentations from curriculum and special ed, which brings us to today, as you can see, October 24th. And then for the other school districts, they can usually start their district budget work once we get those assessments built in. And that usually takes place in the winter, late fall. And as we prep for a town meeting and we get the town report sent to the printers in February. This is a slide I showed last year. This year I did it all on one slide because I think it'll be, you will remember this. But this question comes up a lot is how much of our local school district is the SU? So looking at these charts, you can see the ratios are very similar among all 3 school districts. Basically, roughly 70 to 75% of your 72 to 75%, depending on the school district, is your local school budget. That's the purple. Special ed is the red. Administration and operations is the blue. So that would include the superintendent's office, technology, the business office, transportation, etc. is the blue. Early childhood is the light green, and the sliver in the aqua is food services. This shows you the total expenditures within the general fund. There are 3 funds to the SU budget. The general fund, the ECP, which is Early Childhood Fund, which includes ECP and ECSC, which Elizabeth asked about earlier with Katie's presentation, and food services. But the general fund is made up specifically of special ed, administration operations, and you can see that's some context there for those 2 parts of the budget. The recommendation from the SU Budget Committee is $12,055,148 for next fiscal year. That represents a 7.84% special ed increase And administration operations increase a little less than 3%. One of the things the budget committee wanted to make sure that the SU board was aware is that you just signed a new agreement. And we were trying to figure out a way to represent how much that new support staff agreement that the SU board signed with support staff and teachers for this current fiscal year accounts for the budget increase and how much was due to other things and including additional FTEs. So if we go back to the previous slide, 7.84%, out of that 7.84%, how much is due to the new agreements? And you can see a little over 55%, a little more than half is due to the new agreements. So to put another way, if there were no additional FTEs, it would be basically 90% due to that new agreement. A little less than a third account for the additional FTEs that Katie referred to earlier, that one teaching position and some support staff. And the other 11% is benefits. I'm not including the benefits in the wages and LEA tuition, et cetera. That makes up the remainder of that 7.84% special ed increase. So again, doing some rough math, if you took out the new agreement, it would be basically the same as administration and operations, a little less than 3%. And which makes sense because administration operations is mostly at will. The rate of increase, to give you some context, over the years, last year was 5.9%, which was, I think, about 3% special ed and 2% administration operations. This year is 10.8%, which is, as we saw earlier, a little less than 3% for administration operations and 7.5%, a little over 7.5% for special ed. What does this mean for your assessments? Again, we break out assessments into 4 categories for the 3 funds. Special education is in the red. Blue is administration operations, food service, and early childhood program. So this is what you would see in your local budgets. And so the numbers make it easier to identify. These are projections, but we've gotten most of the revenue that we expect to get in. So we don't expect this to change much on a percentage basis if the budget's adopted. As you can see, early childhood and ECSC is up 24%. Admin and operations assessment is up 40 grand or 1.64%. Special ed is up 20%, and food service is essentially flat. All the budget materials are on the SU website and have been as of October 7th. And now, any questions? Amy?
The link on the website, does that show the individual districts?
Yep.
What the assessment will be? Okay.
You got it.
Great. Thank
On the
you.
website, yeah, that's a good question. On the website, I have not just this presentation, but all the funds. And in fact, something I did different this year is I included the ECP budget and the food service budget within that as separate tabs on the bottom. The general fund is obviously the biggest one, but then you see ECP and food service as separate tabs. And every chart I have here is included in that spreadsheet.
Great. Are there any other questions? Imagine that there would not be. Elizabeth.
I just want to really publicly thank you for sending out such detailed information and the graphs and pie charts. It was really amazing to get it so well in advance and be able to think about it and ask you questions in advance of this meeting. So I don't have any questions. I just want to really thank you for that effort. That was really great.
Thank you.
I do have a question, but it's for Katie. And I know it's just looking back to last year. I know we had some concerns about the mental health status of our staff and our students. And just kind of asking you, do you feel, because there were many positions that you brought in to address those areas, and I just wanted to get your feedback on that.
So we have Still an open one mental health clinician that we could fill. We've been working on stabilizing the three, because we've gone from having HCRS as a system to now all of our internal staff. Our last one just started today. Nicole is going to be split between Heartland and Weathersfield, which is wonderful. So we could definitely use another. One of our positions is grant funded, so it's not reflected here in our budget. And that's Julia's Barakian's position as school to home coordinator for Mount Scottney SU, but primarily the Mount Scottney building. So I think we are within our systems, building better systems, and that part of the increase, we're also putting emphasis on social emotional interventionists as well. So the people, right, working closest with the students are able to get the skills and help directly, so it doesn't get to the point with later. Plus with We Are Hope, which we have, what's our FTE in We Are Hope? You're better than I do.
We have half-time at Heartland, a full-time at between Windsor and West Windsor, and we have more than half-time at Weathersfield because they locally pay the additional hours.
So I think our capacity, we are looking at an additional grant and starting that next week, for that's due in a couple of weeks. It's a wicked fast turnaround from the AOE November 15th. They just opened it. That we are looking at what other supports we may want and need and have capacity to take on. I think that's, we're a little measured because of our resources. I know I reached out to HCRS the other day to see where they were, and they're still short 4 clinicians for local schools. And we're, still on their list, but it's kind of one of those realities. But I think we're doing really well with what we have and the systems that we're building.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
It's incredibly helpful document to pull together, so thanks again.
Thank you.
Larry's done a great job.
Yes, yeah.
And I think being transparent and posting it on the website and
And it was on
Yeah.
the budget section of the website. Also, I also put in the board form as a shortcut, so it's in both places.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Mary, I want to thank you because I think you do an awesome job of really condensing the areas that we've been focusing on for the last couple of years. You continue to bring that back and keep us connected to our strategic plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
it's like to give him a standing ovation.
And to be able to connect the budget to the strategic plan, which is all part of portraying of the graduate. It's very exciting. I am sure, well, I know for certain that at our next meeting, we'll talk more on the budget, and I am probably 99.9% positive that we'll be talking about this at our individual district meetings, so there's always more budget coming up. So thank you, Larry, and thank you to everyone who was on the budget committee. That's really exciting. We've had a budget committee for quite a few years, and now they're actually part of the process.
And they had great questions.
Yeah,
Really, it
it's
was
wonderful.
really a great group to work with. And because they've done it before, they're more familiar. So had really good questions.
That was Larry's suggestion a couple of years ago, that those that are on the budget committee should at least serve more than once.
Yeah, because you just figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And now you like it.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, as long as Larry's leading it.
I don't think that was on the requirements list.
And thank you, everyone. Okay, we are moving on to our items for action. And first, we have the sub pay increase. And Christine, did you?
I can give you some information. I definitely can. So
This is in response to the substitute who came to our meeting last month and
advocated
advocated for all
higher pay.
subs.
Yep. So did a little digging. Actually, Larry did the legwork on this. Found out that Woodstock pays $120 a day. We currently pay $100 a day for our subs. Woodstock pays $120. Springfield, Lebanon, and Hartford, there's a range between 105 and 110. We are incredibly short in the sub department, and have people out for various reasons on a regular basis. So we would I would recommend that we increase our sub pay to the $120 mark to attract substitutes to our SU. So that is our recommendation, but you get to decide on that.
Is there a motion? Bill?
I move to increase it to 125.
Thank you, Bill.
I move to increase it to 135.
We're not bidding, Colleen. We're not bidding.
No, I think that's great. Do we know, did you do any math on how much this will be for a year or something? Like the impact of that increase?
We did not. I mean, it is just, it's really a hard target to hit, Colleen, just depending on, some years we have extra money in the sub line, and some years we overspend it depending on the number of absences.
It's also especially hard because there are so fewer subs.
Yeah.
That you can't, it's hard to budget like a typical thing pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But can I just?
Yeah, I would prefer not to have to go the route that Hartford had to, which is they passed an MOU that pays teachers based upon 15-minute coverage.
Wow.
Periods to cover uncovered classes. And it's a data nightmare.
And
It's at their per diem rate too, I'm assuming, like their per diem hourly.
Probably.
No, I think it's $25 an hour or $35 an hour. I can't remember. I believe it is 25. So it's not at a per diem rate. It is a flat rate.
It does impact in other ways too. Like if the teachers don't get their lunch or their prep, they're even more stressed.
Right. We're talking pennies on the dollar here. Over a huge school budget in comparison. And it creates, being able to get substitute creates so much functionality to just the normal school day. So I was being conservative with 125, but I think this is something that I would prefer to pass it to 125 and then relook at it at the beginning of next year to see if we should go to 135 or even 150. But that's my motion.
Second.
I'm sorry?
Colleen
I'm
seconded.
seconding
Okay.
25.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded for 125 for a day of substitute teaching. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, I am going to start in the room with our roll call of voting. Rebecca?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
And Beth?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Colleen?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Nancy?
And being a substitute teacher for a long time before I started full-time, I am interested in Bill's suggestion to look at it again next year. Aye.
And Nikki?
Aye.
Well, it has passed.
Great, and I will,
125 for our subs.
and we'll get it in the newsletter. That's where we get.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, yes, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and now social media. We had our discussion. So I will take a motion to approve that social media be blocked for K-8 with an opt-in for 9 to 12 from parents.
So move, so move, Davis.
Does it need to say, Larry, does it need to say blocked on school devices?
Yeah, school devices.
Oh, blocked on school devices.
Well, we have no control over the cell towers.
Right.
Yeah.
School devices, Chromebooks, which will be whether the Chromebooks are on network or off network.
And that's for student
For students,
devices.
yeah.
We should be specific about that.
And if there's a specific time, because we wanted for Christine to let people know that this is happening. We want to say effective Monday, do you want to pick a date? Or do you want to just do it effective tomorrow? Because there's going to be some tech setup that's going to require this.
Right, there has to be the opportunity for opting in.
Let's say November 1st, maybe.
November 1st.
November 1st.
Are you,
Oh, I was just gonna ask Larry how much time you anticipated needing to do the tech setup and.
Well, for the tech setup, probably 2 or 3 days,
Okay.
maybe less, but for the opt-in,
Yeah.
it might require maybe a week would be good.
Sure, yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think that's fair. I mean, it's been open for so long. I mean, what's long, 7
Right.
days?
and then a parent could opt in at any point,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes, they don't have to opt in before November 1st. They can opt in anytime.
And Bill, your hand is raised.
Oh, thank you. I'm assuming we're not passing this in the policy because we haven't written a policy, but basically what we're doing, I'm just clarifying. We are supporting the administrative decisions to X, Y, and Z. And I think it'd be really important to write that up in a very clear statement to go into the minutes. That exactly what it is that we're supporting the staff doing in that the outcome of the vote.
Great. Because we don't have to
No.
adjust the policy to do this.
No, no, I don't
but
think this
we
requires
do
a
appreciate
policy, but I think it's important to have it within the minutes clearly written what the board is voting on, supporting the administration's decision to do this, and then, of course, the outcome of the vote.
Okay, so what we are voting for is board support of the administration
Recommendation.
restricting social media to all student devices for K-12 with an opt-out opportunity for students. Opt-in opportunity for students 9 through 12.
Yes. Perfect.
So
And
moved.
So you would like to second? Davis, you made the original motion, right?
Yeah, do I need to
Yeah.
withdraw that and do the new one?
No, this was just a clarification of what.
Oh.
Okay. And then Nancy, your second?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. Are there any other questions or further discussion? We will begin. I'm going to start online and then go to in the room, beginning with Beth.
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Colleen?
Aye.
Elizabeth,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
It is unanimous. So thank you. Thank you for this discussion and.
Yeah, thank you for the
So,
support.
and this is effective November 1st.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you.
And I think it's worth thinking, we had some parents bring this to our attention too, so I appreciate the diligence with which that was brought to us, because that's not something I personally ever would have been aware of, so.
Okay, we are setting the next agenda. We have the policies.
And we do have on our list that we made in the summer or the late summer, the substitute teachers policy is on our November meeting agenda for the first read.
Okay,
And then we'll do the restraint and seclusion third reading, mascots, and library material second reading. Good, okay.
great. And let me see what. Hiring and employment. Elizabeth?
Hi, I promise that I will have a hiring, and Beth and I will have a hiring and employment whole thing ready to go at the next one. But can we please add, at our last Mount Escutney School District meeting, we talked about adding some parenting stuff for at the middle school level. And we agreed that we would bring it up to the supervisory union level. And that had to do with, having just very informal conversations among parents of middle schoolers, and also telling parents what skills middle schoolers have developed over the course of their time at our supervisory union to deal with being adolescents, but also having some mediated or facilitated rather discussions with the woman whose name I can't remember, Christine.
Bonnie, her name is Bonnie. I've been emailing her. I've also reached out to Mount Escutney. I'm gonna meet with Courtney and so it sounds like middle school parenting support meetings. I mean, it's a discussion format. So I can certainly put it in my report or if you want to discuss it more, we put it under items for discussion.
And what we could do is have a short discussion and
okay.
have a subcommittee to do the planning and and have that.
So I'll bring what I find out and then we can discuss this on committee. Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And then more budget. And I think we need to keep it there.
Yep.
Can we also get a report on at our next meeting on how we're gonna get our board and community members and other people to join in a discussion about Listen Up, have a screening and discussion.
Yeah. I'll put that on here. I was thinking it might our audit report should be done at the first of the year. It might dovetail with that, showing pieces of that when we roll out the results of the audit report. So we can
That's a
talk
good
about
idea.
that.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing, just so you know, Brittany's on for the data report and it'll be part of the administrative report.
Okay.
I'll try to.
Okay. And Misty Booten, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you guys for really taking seriously about social media. I know that's really important to a lot of parents, especially me, because I don't allow it for my children. So it just makes me feel better, and knowing that that's removed. And I really do appreciate the opt-in form because I feel like that's missed last. So opt-out forms can be missed sometimes. So all of that, what Tara and I brought to you, and I feel like you guys really took that into consideration, and I want to thank you for that. Tara couldn't be here tonight. She has a family emergency, but I know she would be equally happy about your decision. I also want to say I really appreciate what you're doing about the substitute teachers. I know a lot of qualified individuals who I think you'll just get more qualified individuals. You'll get more people willing to apply. And my second grader, her teacher's going to be out. So I know for a couple of months. And I really want to make, as a mom, I want to know that her substitute that she'll have for months at a time is, someone highly qualified to handle that length of time in a classroom. So anyway, bravo to you guys for doing that as well. You guys made some good decisions tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
Do we need executive session?
I don't think so.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Rebecca
Second is.
by David. Okay. And we are in favor by saying goodbye.
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 Stop recording.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Good
Good night, all.
Bye.